You, printer. Print my script, bitch. Yo, 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 welcome back to another episode of Business Blaze. It's your boy with the blaze, Simon. Well, let's just agree never to say that again. This script, as always, is written by Danny. I present it, I go through it, and maybe make a bit of fun of it. I hold my, the most epic cup ever made, the 3 Wolf mug, which I bought as a joke, and it cost me like 14 euros, including shipping, so don't drop it. What happens here is Danny writes it, I read it, Sam will edit it and add some memes. We're talking about printer ink cartridges, cutthroat pricing. Did I come up with this idea? It sounds really boring. Let's see how it goes. I can still remember the excitement of getting my very first printer. It would have been during the 1990s when my trusty old Commodore 64 was already completely out of date. We already heard previously that Danny's trusty old Commodore 64, he ran a dating website off. And people have been like, Simon, when you get to 1 million subscribers, if you get to 1 million subscribers, not a guarantee, is it? You should do a biography about Danny, because what's up with Danny's life? I remember getting my first printer. I went on to Microsoft Works. 97 or whatever it was, it's sort of like Word. I think it was before Word, and they had these different like origami things you could print out, and so I printed out a paper airplane, like the design of the paper airplane. You fold it into place, except I printed it out in blue, and I printed 2 of them, and the printer just printed a whole page of blue. And my dad was like, it'd be great if you didn't do that again, because the cartridges are really expensive and you've just used the whole blue cartridge. This was during my young entrepreneurial years when I was running my own local dating agency, I told you, called Perfect Partners. And the only reason I needed a paper printer was to create the in-depth 3-page questionnaire for my customers. Wow. Oh yeah, in the past, I guess it was offline. So you'd have to go and give these to people. Danny, your life, man. Magic. Absolute magic, I got no other words for it. These would include probing personal questions to help along with the intensely complicated matching process. Questions like, are you a man or a woman? Whoa, Danny, it's 2020. Do you like poached eggs? My answer to that would be absolutely, but I don't like making them. Do you mind if your partner is a bit ugly? Oh, the printer that I eventually got hold of, man. Can you imagine? Danny's got his dating thing, and he's just got a pile of people just a bit ugly. The printer that I eventually got hold of for my Commodore 64 would have cost about £200 when it first went on sale, but I managed to pick it up second-hand fairly cheaply. I thought it was a quite flashy thing to have in my bedroom at the time. Looking back now, it was terrible. It used to take ages just to sputter out a single page of black text, so this developed into a problem when I had hundreds of 3-page questionnaires to print. I really feel like when I've got lots of stuff to print, I mean nowadays I'll just print it at home because who cares, but in the past, when printers were slow and super expensive, you'd just go and copy them for 5p a sheet at the newsagents or whatever. Or the last time I really had to do this, I was at university, so you just copy them, and then you're supposed to log them in the printing book, yeah, I printed 50 copies. And yeah, I'll definitely pay for those. And it was a dot matrix printer, so the text always looked really crap and hard to read anyway. Maybe that's why I didn't get so many customers. Also, Danny, based on your survey, do you like poached eggs? Well, it's not exactly, Tinder, is it, Danny? Oh, I do remember that the ink cartridge lasted quite a long time and it was reasonably cheap to replace though. Oh, okay. Well, this was a dot matrix, right? That works slightly different. The first one I was talking about with the blue was an inkjet, and I do remember those inks were really expensive. Fast forward a couple of decades, and buying my last printer for my PC was a completely different experience. I hadn't even meant to buy a new printer when I stumbled into PC World on that day. But when I came across, who goes to computer shops to buy things? But when I came across this shiny silver beast that could rapidly print out pages of super sharp text and images in glorious full color, I had to take it home. I feel like this is Danny discovering a color printer in 1995 rather than a recent trip to PC World. It only cost about 30 quid as well. That's much less than I paid for my painfully slow and crap dot matrix printer, which is probably still trying to print out those damn questionnaires somewhere in the attic in Rotherham. And Danny's given me a pronunciation guide. I think I mentioned this before because people are like, Simon, you don't have to pronounce Rotherham, and it's like, guys, I've never been to the north. I think the furthest north I've ever been, other than Scotland, was York. I don't even know if is York in the north? I don't really know. Look, I have never heard of Rotherham or Rotherham or whatever it's called, but I googled it, and the number one thing that came up, I've definitely made this joke before, but it's not a joke. The number one thing when you Google Rotherham is not the Wikipedia page for Rotherham, but the Rotherham child gang raping something. It was terrible. I shouldn't laugh, but it is weird that that is the thing your town is most famous for. It's like the Catholic Church famous for the Pope and child sexual abuse. Oh, and I feel like these days maybe like Catholic, you know, if you played that game of association, you know, where it's like cup, coffee, tea, and then you jump around and it's like Catholic Church, child abuse, maybe the Pope. It's only really just occurred to me that I haven't really used that printer for about 5 years. It's still right here in my office, taking up quite a bit of room, but I now mainly just use it as a very big drinks coaster. Danny, why are you putting your drinks on your printer? I mean, then you'll be sitting there and it'll be like really high up and at risk of spilling over things. It's very curious. Also, what are those old AOL CDs for? And that's because when the ink cartridges last ran out after just a few weeks of use, I seriously couldn't be asked to go to the hassle and expense of replacing them yet again, so I just gave up on printing. And I don't blame you. I didn't have a printer I got a printer for the first time since being a student nearly 10 years ago. Like a year ago, last year. Printing's not really necessary, except if you host Business Blaze, but you know, that's a one-off use case. As I'm sure most of us already know, the problem with modern inkjet printers is that while the actual machines come relatively cheap these days, the cost of replacement ink cartridges is staggeringly high, and they don't even last particularly long. But is it really just a complete scam, or is there at least a shred of perfectly legitimate logic and reasoning behind the pricing structure? Now, I've got guesses about this, and I don't want to guess because I'm pretty sure Danny's gonna, you know, take us through everything in more depth and intelligence than I can muster, but I will just add, I think I've also mentioned this before, that all of this is printed on something called an Epson L1800, I think, which is a continuous ink printer. So you just pour a giant thing of ink in the side, and I bought that printer last year. I blaze the 3 times a week, and I print giant A3 photos with it. The inks are not even half done. It's incredible. Get an Epson L1800, you'll never buy printer inks again. And when you replace them, you just buy a giant bottle of genuine Epson ink. It's less than $10 for like the giant canister of ink. Docking up on new inkjet cartridges can typically cost you about $50 today, and it does instinctively seem like a bit of a rip-off handing over that much cash for a couple of chunks of plastic containing a little bit of ink. In fact, measure for measure printer ink is now more expensive than vintage champagne and nowhere near as nice to drink. Not recommended. Business Blaze does not recommend the consumption of printer inks, just to be absolutely clear on that. The cartoonist Matthew Inman for The Onion website once observed, either printer ink is made from unicorn blood or we're all getting screwed. Well, we all know the answer to that, Matthew. We're all getting absolutely screwed, unless you're Simon and you have an Epson L1800 printer. Well, maybe they cost a bit more than we think to produce. Apparently not. YouTuber Gregory Austin McConnell, oh, I've seen this video, it's so good, recently revealed that he once spent time working as a technical support assistant for an unnamed computer company. He sounds like he's always afraid of getting sued as I am on Business Blaze. I suspect that the company did have a name, otherwise the marketing division would have had a really tough job. I think that Gregory just didn't want to get sued. Ba-da-bum-bum. During a telephone conversation with a customer, Gregory pulled up the details of a standard capacity multicolor ink cartridges that he was trying to flog to a customer at the time. The details revealed the retail price alongside the manufacturing price, and there was a fairly big difference between the two. The company with no name was flogging these cartridges for a customer for $60 a go. The manufacturing price was just 23 cents, and honestly, that feels high. I mean, the ink is made en masse, so obviously the cost of that is nothing. The plastic that it surrounds it, also nothing. The cost of assembly of something that small in China, surely it's less than 23 cents. It's insane still. What the f***? That's some pretty huge markup. Yes, it is. Of course, this is largely put down to the classic razors and blade marketing strategy. You get the equipment cheap, but you have to shell out a bundle for the accessories that you'll need to keep using it. Yes, and that is absolutely true, because the opposite side of that is if you pay something expensive up front, then you won't have to, keep maintaining it. So I bring it back to my Epson printer. That guy it was expensive. It was like £500 for the printer. But, once you had it for a year, especially if you're blazing it up 3 times a week, very quickly it becomes a sensible decision. It's a strategy widely credited to the fabulously named American businessman King Camp Gillette. King Camp. Fantastic. That's almost as good. Brunel, the dude who made bridges, his middle name was Kingdom. I'm like, epic. Well, what's your name? Islamabad or whatever it was. Kingdom Brunel. The founder of the Gillette Safety Razor Company was said to have developed the innovative new marketing ploy of giving away the fancy razor handles for next to nothing in order to grab the attention of the customer and then make all the real money on matching replacement blades. If this channel was bigger, now would be an incredible transition to Dollar Shave Club. But I'm not going to do that. Dollar Shave Club? Maybe I will, if you pay me. I've got a ton of your shit on my desk already from my other channels, so you know what to do. Give your boy Simon some money. We already said I would stop referring to myself as your boy because it's entirely inappropriate coming out of my mouth. Although when I said in a recent video, you have to check yourself before you wreck yourself, people seem to like that a lot. So here we are. King Count Gillette is often said to have invented the safety razor, but in fact he just improved on existing designs and made them popular. In fact, without wanting to spoil the story, he didn't even invent the razor and blades marketing strategy either, he just copied what his competitors had been doing. He copied it well though, didn't he? Because when you think of razor blades, you think of Dollar Shave, you think of Gillette. I mean, Dollar Shave Club, you're great and you're an upstart and you are doing things better, but like, it's like Gillette or maybe what's that other one with the swords? Wilkinson Sword! And also, of course, what we all think of is Raid Shadow Legends! Oh! But whatever its origins, it's a strategy which would continue to be adopted by other breeds of company well over a century later. We discussed in previous Business Blaze episode how Kodak used to sell their cameras relatively cheaply but then charged a fortune for the photographic film. Microsoft is said to lose money on the sale of every Xbox One X games console, but they go on to pull in about $7 from every $60 game you buy. Wait, that doesn't sound so great. That sounds like you're spending $53. So, what? Oh, I assume it works. I don't know much about video games. I do have this Xbox One X. It's pretty great. Service providers will often sell you a good smartphone at a ridiculously low cost or even give them away for free, but they'll get their money with the ongoing service charges from your contract. I feel that's a little different than Razor and Blades though, because that's just like a contract model where it's like, yeah, you're paying for the phone. And this is, I don't know if they still do this in the UK, but this is a shady ass business. Like, they'll be like, yeah, you can get the new iPhone 17 pimp mode or whatever, and it'd be like, yeah, it'll cost you just £60 a month for like 186 months. Or let's talk about a real example. It'll be like a new iPhone, it'll say like £60 a month for 24 months, and you get the iPhone for free. And it's like, well, that's sketchy enough already, because, you know, someone who can't afford £60 a month will easily, or can't afford a new iPhone at like £2,000 or $1.5 or whatever, but be like, I can afford £60 this month and maybe next month, and I'll figure it out, even though I'm pretty broke. So they'll go buy it. And that is already dodgy, because I don't think they should be doing that, because those people, you know, is basically an incentive to get into expensive debt, because obviously if you buy the phone up front, it's cheaper. And then, but they got even more sketchy, where they were like, and we'll give you £200 of like Tesco vouchers, or in some cases, we'll just give you £200 cash. And I'm like, that should be illegal. And I really hope that is now illegal. Look, I'm a capitalist. People point out, it's like, oh, you're such a socialist, Simon. And I'm like, no, I'm a capitalist. But let's not really f people. Let's not be a piece of shit, is always my thing. It's like, yes, capitalism, but let's try and not be a piece of shit about it. Oh, 3 wolves? Smash that dislike button. Oh, okay, you get the same sort of thing with printers. The manufacturing cost of an HP Envy 4520. Envy is the worst name for a printer. It's like, ooh, nice printer. Green with envy. It was said to be about $120, and that didn't even include research or development or marketing or shipping costs. But HP was happy to sell you the printer for about $70 because they expected to get back all of the money with wildly overpriced ink cartridges. This all explains why many printers now have embedded technology which blocks cheap refills from third-party manufacturers by having the machine authenticate the cartridge before it entertains the idea of using it. And that Austin McConnell chap's video, he also goes into all of that stuff. It's super interesting. It's not a popular move. In fact, I mean, this video, just go watch Austin's. Cool. Nah, I'm just kidding. You're not here for facts. you're here for the 3-wolf mug. It's not a popular move with consumers, no who feel restricted and trapped into buying only the expensive original official cartridges from the manufacturer, but the company would never recoup the cost of the printer if it gave you the freedom to buy replacement cartridges from elsewhere. I mean, it does make sense. I don't think this is like a super shifty business move. We know what's up. However, it's not just a slightly dubious pricing model. There's a lot of other dodgy stuff going on here too. For example, you don't nearly get as much ink for your money as you used to. A similar debate that has raged over the decades is the alleged shrinking size of the wagon wheel. Oh, this is a chocolate thing. I haven't thought about this since I was a kid. A popular chocolate biscuit stuffed with marshmallows, available in the UK and other Commonwealth countries. The wagon wheel, people really like this. It was never my favorite chocolate. I have to say, it tastes a bit fake to me. I'm a chocolate snob. Actually, I'm kind of like an anti-chocolate snob because people are always like, oh yeah, I got you some fancy chocolate. I'm like, yeah, but it tastes 70% cocoa, doesn't it? It kind of tastes like shit. It doesn't taste like chocolate. It makes my mouth all funny. And I don't know why people like this. It's like milk chocolate. People are like, oh, that's nasty. You know, a white chocolate, though, it doesn't even contain cocoa. I'm like, yeah, but it tastes good, doesn't it? It's not complicated. Does it taste nice? Yes. Okay, I like it. Does it taste like shit? Yes, I don't want it. Angry UK biscuit lovers are convinced that why are we talking about wagon wheels? What's going on? Convinced the wagon wheels have gradually got smaller since the glory days of their childhood, while others are but also they got bigger, you know? It's like, oh my God, when I was young, my parents were so big. It's like, yeah, because I was small. It's not like they got smaller. They did get smaller, I guess. You know, people do shrink as they get older, but that's not what's going on here, is it? While others have put forward a theory that maybe it's just because our hands got bigger as we grew up, Danny and I, on the same page. The UK manufacturers, Burton Foods, have always denied that wagon wheels have got smaller, but it turns out they're fibbing. While the Australian versions are still as big and fat as ever, the UK versions have slowly and sneakily shrunk by 12% over the last 20 years. There's certainly no denying that printer cartridges have decreased in size over the last 10 to 15 years. Or to put it another way, the actual plastic cartridges have stayed roughly the same size, but the amount of ink you get inside has strangely evaporated. Not sure about that. Also, this is absolutely max sketchy. Not saying this about any particular company. You notice I'm not saying HP or Epson or Canon. It's just, you know, generic printer company. In the early noughties, a typical color cartridge would contain as much as 42 milliliters of ink, but nowadays you'll be lucky if you get 5 milliliters. Holy shit. If you cut open a cartridge today, you'll find a lot more empty space in there than you did in, say, 2004. Another point to bear in mind is that your printer and ink cartridges seem to be designed to work against you at every turn. Many inkjet cartridges come embedded with a microchip, which is apparently designed to monitor the quality of your ink and let you know when you're running a bit low. The problem is that these microchips will also instruct your printer to stop operating if your color cartridge has run out of one particular color. So, for example, if you've run out of cyan, the printer will stubbornly refuse to work even if the cartridge is still overflowing with other colors. And this drove me absolutely insane back in the day before, you know, I got away from using print cartridges, which was, you know, you'd want to print like, oh yeah, I want to print a business play script. It is black and white. And it's like, yeah, you're out of cyan, mate. It's like, you printer, print my script, bitch. Oh, it's your boy Simon, he needs a script. It's a bit like having an interactive fridge which is crammed full of fresh food, but it refuses to let you open the door until you've stocked up on pickled eggs. Pickled eggs are not particularly nice, but Danny keeps mentioning them. I guess he likes them. Maybe I feel like I haven't had a pickled egg since I was a kid. I feel like it's something my grandma would force me to eat even though I didn't want to eat it. Yeah, nah, maybe I'll like it more as an adult, but it's not really up there on things to try. A shrewd user might think he can get around the problem by switching over to black and white printing for a while so that he can save on the color cartridge for the really important stuff. But even this doesn't always work. Yes, it doesn't. Many printers are designed to deliberately mix a little cyan into your monochrome printing, as this apparently helps give it a purer black. Who gives a shit printing a document? It's like, oh, it's not pure black. Everyone cares. It was news to me that the purest form of black is black with a little cyan mixed in. But then, of course, I'm not an expert in these things. Does sound like it, doesn't it? And of course, as soon as your cyan runs out from this pure black printing, your whole color cartridge is going to be rendered useless. A further problem is that color cartridges are often known for providing false notifications anyway. It may well be telling you that you've run out of cyan, but if you actually open up the cartridge, you'll often find that you've got enough cyan ink in there to print out loads of pure black documents for months to come. In their defense, the printer companies claim it's misleading to focus on single factors such as the pricing of printers or cartridges or the amount of ink you get in a modern cartridge. Like, yeah, it's misleading to focus on these single things where we're, clearly being fairly scammy. How about you focus on the pureness of the black? HP reportedly spends over $1 billion a year on developing new printing technology, and Epson claims that it's now possible to produce a far greater number of pages with the same amount of ink that they were using a decade ago. Yeah, that's why we shrunk it down to 5mm. It's not because you have to buy printer cartridges more often. I'm not saying Epson would say that, I'm just saying that's what a generic printer company might say. Boom! But there's surely no getting away from the fact that these companies currently seem determined to bleed you dry by flogging you technology that is rooted in purposeful restriction and then raking in huge profits from the frankly ludicrously high markups on rapidly shrinking ink replacements. Why is getting my continuous ink printer was a hassle? I mean, because it's rare, they're not a common thing. Why isn't there a company like Dollar Shave Club or one of the other sponsors that I have that kind of shake things up? Like Glasses USA or Mack Weldon, that make stuff that has typically been shit and make it better. Why is there not a company that is, why doesn't this exist? If there is, sponsor me. I'd like to talk about you. This ink cartridge. But there's surely no getting away from the fact that these companies currently seem determined to bleed you dry by flogging you technology that is rooted in purposeful restriction and then raking in huge profits from the frankly ludicrously high markups on rapidly shrinking ink replacements. You know that things have got too weird for their own good when the ink cartridges often turn out to be more expensive than the actual printer itself. And you think, oh well, I'll just go out and buy a new printer every time, which while insanely wasteful, at least you're not getting maximum level ripped off. Except then you realize that the printing cartridges they put in the printer when they sell it actually contain even less ink, often, not always, naming no specific companies, because then you use them quicker and then you have to go and buy the actual expensive inks where they make their money. Again, this is like capitalism too far. Let's stop peeing pieces of shit. Many consumers feel like they're gaming the system here by simply buying a new printer when the ink runs out. I should read these ahead, I'm so sorry. But that doesn't necessarily work either. In these cases, the cheap printers will only come with startup cartridges containing the tiniest dribbles of ink, so you'll run out of ink almost immediately. Thank you, Denny. Perhaps the real proof that this strategy simply isn't working is the fact that the concept of home printing doesn't seem to have moved on very far in the last couple of decades or so. We now find it easier than ever before to do so much with our smartphones, cameras, computers, televisions, and interactive salt dispensers, if you get that joke. You're an OG Business Blaze legend. Thank you very much. Buy my merch. Oh, and quite often, the price of this ever-evolving technology seems to just keep on dropping, like my merch, into your home if you purchase it through the link below. But frequently, replacing your ink cartridges still seems like a massive and expensive pain in the ass, unlike purchasing my merch, which you can purchase easily through the link below. If anything, we've possibly gone backwards with printing because people like me have completely given up on it. And you can also wear this t-shirt backwards if you don't want to have my face. You can buy my merch through the link in below. Flexibility with the Whistler merch. Maybe there's some hope for the future, and there's hope for you too. If you purchase a t-shirt like this and become an absolute legend, people will respect you and love you and admire you more because of your merch. Link below. American giant Lexmark. Lexmark is a company I haven't heard of for a long time, but I'm pretty sure that was the printer I had growing up. Lexmark. They lost a landmark David and Goliath court battle with a small US family business called Impression Products, who were offering cheap refills of protected Lexmark ink cartridges. Lexmark sells two types of ink cartridges: cheap single-use cartridges and much more expensive reusable models. The quite annoying thing is that they're both exactly the bloody same, except the cheaper one includes a microchip which disables the cartridge if you try to refill it. Douchey move. Impression Products, along with a lot of other small businesses, found a way to disable this protection, enabling customers to pop their supposedly one-use cartridges into the post and receive cheap refills. Awesome. Lexmark complains that this was patent infringement. I'm not really sure what patent they would be infringing there, but I guess Lexmark's got good lawyers. Apparently not that good, because the Supreme Court, bloody hell, this went to the top, ruled in favor of Impression Products, declaring that Lexmark had no right to dictate how a consumer may choose to repair, modify, or reuse a product after the purchase has been made. Wow, that is epic. Mad respect for you, Impression Products. I don't know who you are, but if I can find your website, and remember, I'm gonna link to your below, because mad respect for taking Lexmark, a corporate giant, to the Supreme Court to set this precedent. Legendary. Impression Products, everyone. That's where you should go get your ink cartridges refilled. Impression Products. Maybe the judges were just fed up with paying over the odds for replacement ink cartridges too. Ba-da-bum-bum. It's possible that this ruling may help prompt a rethink of future pricing strategies, but it's probably best not to hold your breath. You can't help thinking that most consumers would be far happier just to pay a lot more for the printer, like your boy. I gotta stop, and now it's in my head, and now it's becoming a thing, but it sounds so dumb. I gotta check myself before I wreck myself. And then you'll have peace of mind that replacement ink cartridges are going to be relatively cheap and generously filled right up to the top, so they'll last far longer without having to piss about all over again in just a few months or even a week's time. Until that day arrives, you might be better off with a laser printer, or if you can afford it, although they're usually a lot more expensive than inkjet printers and the photographic printing is of an inferior quality. You at least get a lot more print action with minimum mucking about. Failing that, you can follow in my footsteps and just forget the whole silly idea for now. Danny's footsteps, obviously. I gotta print this for now. And everyone's like, Simon, why didn't you use an iPad? Because then I couldn't do this! I mean, I could, but it would be really expensive. If you ever do need to produce some important printing, it shouldn't be too hard to find some other mug to do it for you. Simon, can you let me know when you finally printed out those 450 Campbell soup recipes I asked you for ages ago? You can skip the ones with parsnips and butternut squash. I'm not a bloody animal. Danny, man, what's up with your lack of butternut squash? Is tasty shit. Like, that's probably my favorite squash. Are there other squashes? It's the only one I know, but it's extremely good. Bonus fact. And yes, Danny, I can print those for you because I got a continuous ink printer. Weird flex, but okay. The reason that Marvel's clumsy superhero, the Incredible Hulk, is green is purely because printers are crap and they don't work properly. I know so little about comic books and Marvel. Like, I've seen one of those Marvel movies other than Iron Man. I had no idea the Incredible Hulk was clumsy. I know that he's a man who turns into a green monster. When he's angry? Oh my god, he's called Bruce Banner. How do I know that? How do I know that? He is called Bruce Banner, right? When the character made his debut appearance in comics in 1962, the character was depicted as grey, or at least he was meant to be. Creator Stan Lee had carefully chosen the character's grey skin as he was keen to avoid referencing any specific ethnic group with the Hulk. Well, green also solves that problem, doesn't it? However, it proved to be very difficult to maintain the consistency of the grey colour in printing in that very first issue. The colour of the Hulk's skin varied from page to page, often coming out as bright silver, charcoal black, or green. By the time he appeared in the second issue, Stan Lee had decided to permanently change the Hulk's colour to green because it looked quite cool in the cocked-up version and was much easier to print without inconsistencies. Incidentally, I was shocked to discover that the Jolly Green Giant, the long-running mascot for the brand of Green Giant peas and sweet corn and other canned vegetables, wasn't originally green either. When he first made his appearance in 1928, he was more of a white-skinned, scowling caveman. Fascinating. That didn't have anything to do with printing, though. It seems like they just hadn't really thought it through properly. Fascinating times two. This has been Business Plays. I've been Simon. This has been the Three Wolf Tea. Danny writes it, Sam edits it. I f***ed on camera for about half an hour. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Purchase that merch if you want. You don't have to. I'm mostly sarcastically plugging it, but if you want it, it is available through the link below. Thank you for watching. Let's not really f*** people. Let's not be a piece of shit.